we find ourselves whisked away to a bygone time, where the setting unfolds amidst the Lapland front. Nestled in the northern reaches of Finland, Lapland fell under Nazi control in 1941. Fast forward to the autumn of 1944, when Finland played its cards right by brokering an armistice with the Soviet Union, stipulating the cutting of ties with Germany and the booting out of any remaining German forces from Finnish soil post-September 1944. Despite the intended conclusion by late October, the operation persisted, dragging its feet, with 200,000 German troops digging in their heels within Finnish borders. On September 26, 1944, as World War II rages on in Finland, we catch a glimpse of a young Finnish woman named Helena, who is held captive alongside other Finnish men, traversing the icy Arctic Ocean under the watchful eyes of Nazi soldiers. She proudly declares herself a midwife. Within the maze of her mind, she recites the letter she penned for a German Finnish officer, Johannes, whom she loved with all of her might. Clinging to the straw of hope that he is still alive, she pledges to love him through thick and thin and wait for him as agreed, even if it means she'll end her days waiting in the man's cabin. Upon reaching land, the soldiers unshackle her from her chains and hand her a pistol, instructing her to shoot the prisoners who came along with her as a prize for the trip. She hesitates, unable to muster the courage to carry out such a heinous task, and ends up throwing down the gauntlet. Outraged, the soldiers line her up alongside the others and prepare to shoot them in the back. A sense of dread settles over Helena. Much to her surprise, only the male prisoners are cut down in cold blood, leaving her standing alone amidst their bodies. She is hastily ordered to walk back to the frigid ocean and onto the ice. In the following few sequences, we find her struggling, striving to stay alive, and asking Johannes to forgive her as she faces her fate alone. Several months earlier, back in June 1944, Helena, known to the villagers as Wild Eye, is a successful midwife against all odds, despite the tragic passing of the mother while in the middle of her childbirth. After dotting the I's and crossing the T's on a report card, and upon hearing ceaseless knocks, she heads to the window, conversing with her female superior, who orders her to visit a town called Nakala. Even though she knows that she'll stick out like a sore thumb, they're due to her disdain for abortion, she bites the bullet and hastily leaves on a bike. In the subsequent scene, she arrives at Lisa's home, where another expectant mother resides in order to assist her childbirth. Following a few struggles, she finally delivers a dark-colored baby, much to everybody's bewilderment. Johnny, with a mocking laughter echoing through the room, makes a pointed comment that he has seen a few black people around the area, revealing his prejudiced views. Later on, we depict Helena discussing the matter with the head midwife, wondering what they will be doing to the mother and her child, knowing that they will be executed if the Nazis discover the infant's skin color. Therefore, with a sense of dread, the older woman decides to rip up the birth certificate written by Helena, making a clean sweep of the evidence. Ultimately, the SS officers pay a visit to the tavern to paint a picture of their operation with photographs. Upon Johannes' arrival, Helena quickly checks herself in the mirror, making sure she looks quite beautiful and pure. Shortly after, Johannes and Helena's glances meet, with the latter feeling head over heels, charmed by the dashing young officer who had crossed her path twice in one day. Soon, while the midwives prepare themselves for the photo opportunity, Johnny leans in, quietly informing Helena that she will be interviewed by Johannes for a German magazine, since she is worth her salt at her job. Much to Helena's delight, the young officer, with an ace up his sleeve thanks to his significant influence, is assigned to keeping an eye on the villagers and reporting any signs of resistance. Later that night, Johnny and the head midwife walk off to a distant field, carrying the baby. While Helena is nose deep in a book, she spots a witch accompanying the pair as he prepares to drown the bog. Helena secretly follows them, with tears streaming down her face upon seeing the horrific act before her eyes. As soon as the distraught midwives beat a hasty retreat, Helena rushes towards where they left the to find it and give it a proper burial with a heavy heart. While she sits among the reeds, she laments her situation, praying for a stroke of luck to marry Johannes so she can leave her profession and the cursed place she calls home. As morning dawns over the village, the midwives gather among the German troops as the young filmmaker Johannes takes videos of the scene. Once Helena joins them, one of the midwives urges her to seize the day and make a move on Johannes before his group uproots for another camp the following day. Later, during lunch, she addresses the matter, asking Johnny to help her secure a job in Tavka. Upon learning about Johannes' departure, the idea of getting closer to him creeps into her mind. Johnny and his companion initially tease her, knowing it is foolish to set foot in the war-torn zone. recalling that Helena's father lost his life there, and they refuse to throw her into danger. However, Helena protests, believing that she is allowed enough to take her own decision. Yet Johnny persists in his stance, and he stubbornly departs the table, leaving Helena frustrated. Johnny, trying to soothe his nerves, goes down to the basement to check the furnace. Shortly after, Helena follows him in an attempt to twist his arm. In a sudden twist, she lays her cards on the table, revealing her knowledge of the demise at their hands the previous night. Johnny's countenance darkens upon hearing her words. However, he tries to keep a stiff upper lip and denies it. Unfazed, Helena insists on accompanying him to the burial site as proof. With no choice left, feeling defeated, Johnny decides to bite the bullet and obtain her a work permit. The following day, Johnny drives Helena to the campsite as she has requested. On the road, she spots several officers on patrol, throwing caution to the wind as they shoot the prisoners of war. Much to their luck, they sail through the campsite without any issue and unload all of Helena's belongings. She promptly approaches a high-ranking Nazi SS officer to get instructions as she embarks on her duties as a medical assistant in the camp. After a brief respite for lunch, they accompany her alongside Johnny to the officer's office, where they are graciously offered drinks, with his trusted manservant playing the violin with tears in his eyes. Reflecting on the conditions of the camp, Helena believes that, though challenging, it seems a cut above the others she's worked in. The officer, however, declares that she will be stuck in a rut with mundane tasks, while another nurse will be managing the infirmary alone. Suddenly, Johannes joins them, prompting the officer to ask him for a photograph. In the meantime, Helena's face turns red, her heart missing a beat at his sight. They soon line up for a photograph, with Helena in the middle, over the moon about Johannes' closeness. A few moments later, we depict Johannes by the riverside, lost in the detrimental grip of his medicines, fighting his memories, which keep playing tricks on him, reminiscing about the prisoners flooding the concentration camp, feeling guilty over his involvement in torturing them, until he surrenders to unconsciousness. Simultaneously, Helena is carrying clean clothes to the headquarters when a bomb is shot from the blue and explodes on the site. Just then, some fighter planes take the bull by the horns, flying above the camp and raining heavy fire as the young medical assistant keeps her chin up and calmly walks away towards the bombing shelter. Inside, she, Johannes, and the officers brace themselves for the end of the bombing raid, feeling like sitting ducks. Seeing him shaken to the core, she holds his hand, assuring him that she can be the calm in his storm. After clearing the area, she assumes her duties diligently, curing the wounded soldiers' injuries and alleviating their pain. Suddenly, upon walking into the room, her attention is drawn when she catches Alexei red-handed trying to steal medication without her permission. Sensing her trustworthiness, he confesses that his life is by a thread. He beseeches Helena to leave the door ajar for him to be able to escape, a request met by deafening silence. Soon, an injured soldier requiring an amputation is brought to the medical site. Therefore, she jumps into action. Later on, the head nurse arrives, instructing her to count the bodies on the cow sheet. Curiously, Helena wonders about what they are doing there, only to receive a shocking response. They're not pulling any punches, it's torture. Afterward, while Helena is depicted cleaning clothes, Johannes pays her a visit for a bath to wash away his worries. Feeling vulnerable, he confides in her about his recurring nightmares of the war, hearing women's laughter on the battlefield. Helena reveals it as a smoke and mirrors tactic of the Soviet Union used to throw the Germans off balance. While massaging his back, she suddenly hears chaos happening outside what appears to be a Finnish woman being eyed greedily by the soldiers while she stands her ground, defending herself from being attacked. Helena requests Johannes to hold the fort while she rushes outside, pleading with the officer to spare her life and make her a helper, for she is in dire straits. However, the officer turns a blind eye and requests the soldiers march the young lady with the other female captives straight into the lockup, while Helena, unbeknownst to them, keeps an eye on the scene. She soon follows suit, witnessing through the window the amount of torture and the women are faced with. They are stripped, shaved, and cleaned against the fence. However, despite the Germans' revelry surrounding her, the superior bursts into tears, deeply hurt inside at seeing her fellow women. Late into the night, she catches sight of Alexei sneaking beneath the barbed wire, making his escape with the stealth of a cat. The following morning, a jarring alarm disrupts the silence, waking Helena from a deep slumber. At the campsite, we see Johnny gearing up at the crack of dawn, ready to pursue Alexei. Helena addresses her stepbrother, pondering the boy's fate if they catch him, only to be met with a chilling answer. He will be detained indefinitely. She beseeches him to come along, determined to offer Alexei assistance. However, Johnny remains unmoved by her pleas. Unwaveringly, once she spots Johans from afar, she reaches out to him, securing his permission to ride along. To her delight, the young officer agrees, drawn by her beauty. She immediately rushes to gather her belongings, adorns a new floral dress, and prepares herself impeccably. During their journey, the truck comes to a halt due to a blockade, where they discover the soldiers engrossed in using metal detectors to uncover hidden landmines on the road. All of a sudden, another wave of Russian bombers falls upon them, targeting the German troops aggressively and urging Johnny, Johans, and Helena to swiftly retreat. Helena, gripped with dread, clings to Johans's arms while he guides her through the marshland in an attempt to escape the ongoing assault. Following an exhausting day full of unforeseen turns of events, Johans and Helena, along with her stepbrother, arrive at a safe place, their refuge for the night. They traverse the mountainside until they reach the man's cabin. Johnny refuses to join them inside, claiming that the worst awaited the previous prisoners who settled there. He decides to run away in order to call for help, leaving Johans and Helena, who choose to remain there. The couple seizes the opportunity to take advantage of the amenities provided to rest and cook. The following morning, we catch sight of Helena collecting water from the stream, while Johans is seen fixing his camera lens. Once inside the house, Helena kindly requests a picture, a request met with warm approval. However, she goes the extra mile, expressing her longing towards Johans. The latter initially hesitates, but succumbs to his desire when she moves his hand to her private area. Their genuine feelings are finally exposed as they make love passionately. As their bodies intertwine, the intensity of their intimacy urges Helena to scream in ecstasy. The following morning, we can feel that their devotion towards each other is growing stronger. However, Johans is still doubting their relationship. On the other hand, Helena, on cloud 9, dreams of marrying each other. Much to her surprise when she learns that Johans dismisses his return to his duty as a soldier. Therefore, they make a pledge to meet up in the cabin if they ever separate. Some days later, while enjoying each other's company, Helena curiously questions Johans about his photographs, eager to see them. But Johans turns a deaf ear. He decides to contact the camp through the radio to report their survival. After his departure, Helena takes a peek inside his photo box, much to her bewilderment when she discovers pictures of bodies. Soon Johans returns, caught off guard to find Helena burning his photographs. Out of rage, he yells at her, but she believes that it is better to forget and get rid of these terrifying memories. He quickly grabs his camera and leaves her alone, heading to the river to drown his sorrows that keep haunting him. He dives into deep water, recalling the years-long memories of filming bodies, trying to escape the prison of his mind. In the following scene, we find Johans with shaken hands, holding his medicines and wearing his heart on his sleeve as he pours his heart out to Helena. He confesses the endless nightmares he is struggling with, eating away at him with regret for having done such cruel things under the orders of his superiors. Helena rushes towards him in order to comfort him. She grabs his face and kisses him gently, before Johnny's voice throws a spanner in the works of their intimate moments. On his journey, Johnny encountered the injured Alexei, hiding in a potato cellar. Johans decides to shoot him to nip the problem in the bud, yet Helena halts him, believing that they should instead help him flee the region to a safer place. In the meantime, unbeknownst to them, Hunter is lying in wait, keeping an eye on the scene. With cold blood, he shoots Alexei and fires warning shots at the couple, urging them to make a run for it. Later that night, with no choice left, they return to the campsite. Before separating, they seal their unforgettable moments with a kiss. Godel welcomes Helena, informing her that she is the last infirmary standing in the camp. Therefore, she will be handling the cow sheet operations, since her superior has been shot. Later, while in his office, he approaches Helena, beating around the bush about her whereabouts during the manhunt. She recounts what happened, yet she keeps her cards close to her chest regarding Alexei. Soon, Godel oversteps his boundaries, touching her inappropriately. Acknowledging her devotion to Johans, he tries to throw him under the bus by revealing his dark past of following orders to murder thousands, even against his own conscience. Helena takes a seat in his chair, leaving Godel gobsmacked. He admits she's the toughest woman he has ever met. Yet Helena is shaken to the core by his revelation. Before leaving, she calls him out for being a puppet on a string, playing God with people's lives. The next day marks Helena's first day in the cow sheets. She succeeds in accomplishing all tasks assigned with flying colors, earning Godel's praise. But internally, guilt eats away at her. At night, by the campfire, Helena opens up to Johans about her gut-wrenching disdain, condemning the operation as both inhumane and demeaning to women. ever the comforting shoulder. Johannes promises to save her from her misery and flee for a better life. Intrigued, Helena questions him about his parents, only to discover the unfortunate truth. Johannes' mother passed away while giving birth, and therefore his father abandoned him. Helena confesses that her father was shot, and he wasn't a good father either, prompting laughter between the two. A few touches from Helena are enough to ignite their longing. They became consumed by each other's desire, ending up in bed and sharing passionate moments, surrendering to their ardor. In the ensuing sequence, we depict Johannes in the Red Room, contemplating Helena's pictures. His heart finally succumbs to her love. Later on, following a busy day, we find Helena awaiting Johannes' arrival. Shortly after, he reaches her secretly, asking her to leave the camp for good and assuring her that everything is well planned. However, she only needs a couple of days until his return to escape together. Helena, with a heavy heart, reminds him of the cabin in case the plan doesn't unfold as expected. After sharing a kiss, Johannes departs, leaving Helena with a mixture of hope and fear. After Johannes' departure, we learn that Helena visited the dig site where Jews' bodies are buried, much to her sorrow and fright over the scenes she witnessed. Johnny, ever the considerate brother, hands her a firearm in order to protect herself from any unforeseen threats. He informs her that Gödel is an unreliable man, since he can easily turn on her without warning. In the ensuing day, while visiting her midwife friend, she pours out her heart, voicing her regret for being involved in the heinous experiments of the Nazis. She reveals outrageous tests carried out, the several diseases induced in the captive women. During one of her shifts, while she is bandaging the battle-worn, she encounters a Finnish prisoner named Hedda. Helena immediately recalls that Johnny has been moving heaven and earth to find her. She pledges to help her flee the campsite, summoning Johnny to steer her to safety. Following that, while Gödel is seen pulling the strings at a marionette show, Helena joins the scene. Unfortunately, the puppeteer bites the dust due to a gunshot from Gödel. Helena, trying to keep a stiff upper lip, informs him about the Finnish prisoner, asking him to spare her the rod from the experiments they are conducting. Initially hesitant, Gödel gives her the green light to move her to another cell. However, before Helena's departure, he threatens to make her pay through the nose for lying about working in Nazi camps previously, a threat met by deafening silence. At the crack of dawn, the radio broadcasts a new announcement. The armistice agreement between the Soviet Union and the United Kingdom has been signed, sealed, and delivered. Gödel immediately orders all of his soldiers to leave no stone unturned, incarcerating the captured Russians, destroying hospital records, and bringing out women from the cow sheds. Down on her luck, Helena hastily rushes towards Hedda and decides to hide her in the supply room to save her life, until Johnny's arrival later on. On that fateful night, Gödel ruthlessly purges the camp, executing hundreds of prisoners amidst the turmoil. In the meantime, Helena stealthily enters Gödel's office in order to get her records, yet her efforts eventually prove fruitless. Confronting her later, Gödel asks for the key to his safe to obliterate any incriminating evidence, but Helena resists. He strikes her across the face before ordering his assistant to bomb the safe, along with its contents. Surrounded by the loud noises of gunfire and the desperate cries of the prisoners pleading for their lives, Helena erupts in screams, vehemently refusing to partake in any further heinous acts under the Nazi regime. In the following scene, we catch sight of Helena with her head bleeding. Gödel seems to give his arm a twist to her resignation. However, before her departure, he betrays her with a forceful kiss. Little does he know that she will spit on his face. Therefore, he plans her demise. Meanwhile, the camp ceases operations, with the remaining prisoners of war being executed. The following morning, we find Helena licking her wounds, gathering her belongings, and preparing to leave. She goes behind the scenes to pay a visit to Hedda, informing her that she will come back for her the next day to escape together. However, as luck would have it, she gets captured and subjected to the harsh punishments reserved for escapees. Under the heavy rain, Gödel pronounces her guilty, condemning her to the same fate as the previous prisoners. She gets stripped by Gödel personally, shaved, and forcibly injected with cholera. Helena defiantly tells Gödel that Johannes will rescue her and will seek retribution in her name. However, on the other hand, Gödel dismisses her, believing that Johannes is a prisoner of the Russians, much to Helena's sorrow. As the night descends, Hedda hastily emerges from hiding, determined to save Helena, aiding their desperate escape. She helps her break free from her handcuffs and rush out towards the door. As Helena approaches the exit, Gödel, with an eagle eye, appears all of a sudden, firing a warning shot, seemingly in a twisted attempt to assist her. But Hedda decisively shoots him in the neck. Before departing, Hedda asks Helena to put him out of his misery, but the latter rebuffs her request, stating that she will no longer be a cog in the machine. Outside, they run for their lives. Helena fatally incapacitates a truck driver, enabling the two women to conceal themselves inside body bags to be transported far away. They successfully reach the harbor in September safely, and faced with no options, they seek refuge in a shelter for displaced persons. One night, Johnny pays them a visit, much to Helena's surprise. He reveals that he attempted to find them in the camp, but in vain. Therefore, he traveled all the way looking for his beloved. Soon, we bear witness to his emotional reunion with Hedda. Johnny bursts into tears, thanking God that she is safe and sound. In the subsequent scene, we discover that Johnny secures Helena's passage on a boat heading to Narvik, guiding her towards the secluded cabin. Weeks later, the resilient young midwife braves the harsh, icy terrain to arrive at the cabin, hopeful that Johannes might also find his way there. Reminiscing about their delightful shared moments, her heart aches for her beloved. After a few days, Johnny arrives to check on her well-being, refusing to abandon her. Together under the cover of darkness, they reach out to other Finnish refugees, stockpiling supplies for their impending journey to Sweden and preparing Johannes' passport and Finnish birth certificate in case he comes back. The following day, Helena tearfully parts ways with her stepbrother, as their futures dictate separate paths, promising each other a reunion in the near future. Left alone with her misery, awaiting Johannes' arrival, she strives to endure by kindling a fire to keep warm. That afternoon, a local hunter unexpectedly steps into the living room, startling her with a sudden wave of fear. He discloses that the Allies have commissioned him to eliminate Nazi forces in Lapland. He cautions that it won't be long before they target her and the cabin for destruction. However, when Helena admits she lacks any means of defense, the man surprises her by demonstrating chivalry, offering her his gun for protection. Taking the weapon, Helena intends to use it against him, only to discover it is unloaded. The hunter already anticipated her move. Before departing, he leaves her supplies and drops a bombshell. He confesses to being her father's shooter, reluctantly driven by circumstances. He insists he meant well and offers his pipe as a token of remorse, pleading for mercy. Overwhelmed, Helena breaks down in tears. In the following few sequences, we delve into Helena's dreams, where she imagines Johannes by her side, kissing each other passionately as they enjoy each other's company. Even though her devotion to Johannes leaves her devastated, she remains determined to keep waiting for him. As the passing weeks stretch into months, Helena continues to await her lover, not knowing that Johannes is held prisoner by the Russians. We catch sight of Johannes being confined in a tiny cell. One night, he finds an opportunity to escape, and he seizes it. He eventually takes out the guard and disguises himself with his clothes. He immediately rushes towards the exit, asking the soldier to open the door for him. Soon, after securing his path to freedom, he shoots him, prompting the alarm to erupt. Johannes hastily runs away from the prison camp under gunfire, despite a search party scouring for him the following day. He eventually reaches the cabin, only to discover it burned down and plundered by the Russians. Inside, he finds a letter Helena left for him, expressing the depth of her affection for him as indescribable. However, she confesses her dire situation, stating that she has run out of food, and she fears that she won't make it until his return. Disheartened, Johannes breaks into tears, unable to fathom losing his lover. However, he suddenly hears a noise emanating from a hidden compartment, discovering that Helena had been hiding all alone, steadfast in her resolve. Helena chokes up, delighted to see Johannes alive, yet blames him for taking so long to arrive. The couple embrace each other out of yearning. Their reunion is one of profound relief and joy. They share long-awaited kisses as the scene vanishes before our eyes. In the last act of the moving movie, we depict the two lovers crossing the river on foot, hand in hand, cherishing their freedom, declaring their delight following their reunion. They finally succeed in escaping the cabin on November 19, 1944.